My husband left me waiting for 3 hours at a fancy restaurant on our anniversary. When he finally showed up with his friends, he smirked. See? Told you she'd still be here waiting like a faithful dog. They all laughed. I smiled, ordered another drink, then slipped out. His 78 missed calls began once he realized I'd booked a first-class flight to Paris with his credit card. I checked my watch again, 8:47 p.m., 3 hours and 17 minutes of sitting alone at this table, nursing the same glass of wine that had long since gone warm. The staff's pitying glances had shifted from professional concern to something worse. Genuine sympathy. "Would you like another bread basket, Mrs. Parker?" Jason, our server, approached with carefully crafted cheerfulness. It was his fourth time checking on me, each visit more uncomfortable than the last for us both. "No thank you, I'm sure my husband will be here any minute." The words fell out automatically, the same script I'd recited all evening. My fingers smoothed the front of my navy blue dress, the one I'd spent 2 hours choosing this morning. David had once said blue made me look almost elegant, which was as close to a compliment as I'd gotten in years. My phone buzzed again. I expected another excuse from David, but instead it was Rachel, my college roommate. "How's the anniversary dinner?" 16 years, wow. That's something to celebrate. I set the phone face down without replying. What would I say? Still sitting alone while strangers watched me like a tragic exhibit. Our reservation was for 5:30 p.m. The Willow Room wasn't the fanciest place in Baltimore, but for me, it was special. Housed in a restored brick building downtown, it offered enough sophistication to feel like a celebration without the pretentiousness David typically preferred for firm dinners. Before we return to Emily's moment of awakening, let me connect with you. If you've ever felt unseen or dismissed in your relationships, know you're not alone. Stories like Emily's remind us it's never too late to reclaim your voice. If that message speaks to you, consider subscribing. It's free and helps us grow a space where everyone's worth is on. Now back to Emily. I'd spent an hour getting ready, carefully applied makeup, a new lipstick that cost more than I usually allow myself, and small pearl earrings that once belonged to my grandmother. All for a husband who couldn't be bothered to show up. My thoughts wandered back 16 years to the woman I used to be. Emily Parker, fresh from culinary school, 3 job offers in hand, dreaming of opening her own restaurant. That Emily had fire, ambition, and most importantly self-worth. Before she became Emily Parker, devoted wife to rising attorney David Parker. "It's only temporary," David had said when Whitmore and Grant offered him a position in Baltimore. 2 years max, then we'll move back, and you can chase your dream. 2 years became 5, and Baltimore became Seattle, then Chicago. Each relocation pitched as the final stepping stone before it was my turn. I remembered packing my professional knives with each move, keeping them sharpened, ready for the day I'd use them for more than dinner parties to impress David's colleagues. Eventually I stopped unpacking them altogether. My phone buzzed again. "Finally, David, traffic is insane. Be there soon." I looked out at the nearly empty street. Same excuse as an hour ago. I typed, "Should I order for you?" His reply came fast. "Don't wait for me." A command, not a request. I flagged down Jason again. "Could I have some water, please?" I asked, my voice tight with embarrassment. "Of course," he said, then hesitated, his tone softening with genuine kindness. "Just so you know, our kitchen closes at 10 solward." I nodded, feeling my cheeks flush. It was now or never. Any self-respecting woman would have walked out 2 hours ago, but 16 years of accommodating David's schedule, his needs, his career, had worn that instinct down to a dull nub. Through the restaurant window I watched a young couple pass by, arms linked, laughing over some private joke. I tried to remember the last time David and I had laughed together, not the polite chuckles at Whitmore and Grant functions, but real laughter. Nothing came. The couple disappeared down the street, and I was left staring at my own reflection in the darkened glass. I barely recognized myself. My phone rang again. "David." "Hello," I answered, trying to mask the hurt in my voice. "Emily got held up at the office. The Langston case is a mess." His voice had that clipped, distracted tone I knew all too well. "Another 30 minutes. The kitchen closes at 10 solward," I said quietly. "I've been here since 5:30, a sigh on the other end. "You're making this about you again. This case could make partner for me." "It's our anniversary," I reminded him. "I know what day it is, Emily." "Why do you think I made the reservation?" A reservation I'd made 3 days ago after he told me to handle it, but now he'd claim credit for even that. I swallowed the correction. "Just wait. I'll be there." He hung up. No goodbye. An older couple at the next table was paying their bill. They'd arrived an hour after me, enjoyed their meal, and were now leaving hand in hand. The woman caught my eye and gave me a small sympathetic smile. Another look of pity to add to the growing pile. I pulled out my compact mirror, checking my face. The makeup was still intact, but the eyes reflected a woman holding everything together by threads. When had I become this person? This doormat? This obedient little dog waiting patiently? Jason returned, this time with a woman in her 50s, who looked like she belonged more to a mother's book club than a restaurant floor. Calm, gentle eyes, the kind that had seen this too many times. "Mrs. Parker," she began carefully, "we're getting close to kitchen close. Would you like to place an order? We can make it quickly." The humiliation burned in my chest. "My husband is on his way," I said, forcing a smile. "Just another 30 minutes. She nodded, but the glance she shared with Jason said it all. They'd seen this before, women waiting on men who might never arrive, shrinking themselves into patience and polite lies. I took a long sip of water, thinking back to the day I turned down the sous chef position at the Gilded Spoon in Chicago. Why? Because David had been preparing for the bar. "Once I'm established," he'd said, "you can cook anywhere you want." That promise had vanished like dew once he passed. The Willow Room was nearly empty now. Only 3 other tables remained. My phone buzzed. Another message, this time from Rachel. "Everything okay?" I looked around at the vacant chair across from me, the untouched place setting, and the truth hit me like a rush of cold air. Nothing about this was okay. Nothing about the last 16 years had been okay. I checked my watch again, 9:21 p.m., 3 hours and 51 minutes. For what? Then the restaurant door swung open, and a chill ran across my bare shoulders. David's voice came first, that confident baritone I'd heard 100 times in courtrooms and cocktail parties. Then came the laughter, more than one voice. My stomach's. David walked in flanked by 3 people I knew all too well. Brian Carter, from corporate, Ashley Morgan from litigation, and Robert Sinclair, the senior partner at Whitmore and Grant, all in their suits, still in their work shoes, and not a trace of guilt or urgency between them. They'd never been stuck in traffic. They hadn't come from the office. They'd been at Griffin's Tavern, 2 blocks away. Jason, ever the loyal server, shot me a look of quiet confusion as David and his entourage strode toward the table. I sat up straighter, instinct taking over. Years of practice kicked in, the perfect wife posture, the mask, the smile. "Well, gentlemen," and Ashley, David said as they reached my table, his voice just loud enough for the remaining diners to hear. He gestured toward me with a flourish, his gold cufflinks glinting in the low light. "See? Told you she'd still be here, like a faithful dog." The words hit like a slap. My smile froze in place. They laughed. All of them. Ashley's delicate hand covered her mouth. Robert let out a deep chuckle, and Brian snorted into his sleep. These people had eaten my homemade coq au vin at our dinner parties. I'd comforted Ashley through her divorce in my guest bathroom. Robert had brought his kids to our 4th of July barbecue, where I'd spent hours preparing food they all raved about. "For the record," Brian said, checking his watch, "you win, David. Drinks are on me next time." A bet. They'd made a bet on whether I'd actually wait. "Told you," David said smugly, loosening his tie as he took the seat across from me. The others remained standing, still smirking. "Emily understands the demands of a successful legal career, don't you, honey?" His eyes held no apology, no shame, only smug satisfaction. This wasn't a man running late. This was a man making a point. "Would you like to order drink?" Jason reappeared, his professional smile strained as he took in the scene. "We've already had quite a few," Robert chuckled, patting his stomach. "Just stopped by to say hello to the lovely Mrs. Parker, and to see if she'd really wait all night," Ashley added, not even bothering to lower her voice. "She's a trooper." I noticed a young couple at a nearby table exchange a look of discomfort. At least someone recognized the cruelty, but my husband and his colleagues didn't seem to notice. "I'll have another glass of wine," I told Jason. My voice was steadier than I expected. "The Cabernet. Make it the bottle," David added. "We're celebrating 16 years of marital bliss." He reached across to pat my hand, a gesture that probably looked sweet to outsiders, but felt possessive, triumphant. Jason nodded and walked off, throwing me another sympathetic glance. "I should head out," Robert said, glancing at his phone. "Cynthia's wait. Congrats on the anniversary, you two." "David, see you at the Langston deposition," he added with a nod. Ashley and Brian also made their exits, offering empty congratulations that stung more for their insincerity. David settled into his chair with a sigh, relaxing like the evening was just getting started. "You should have ordered," he said, picking up the menu. Kitchen's probably closing soon. Why did you do that? I asked quietly. Do what? His eyes didn't leave the menu. Bring your colleagues. Make a bet about whether I'd wait. He looked up then, a flicker of mild annoyance crossing his face. It was just a joke, Emily. Don't be so sensitive. Besides, it's good for them to see what a supportive wife looks like. Robert's wife would have stormed out after 30 minutes. He said it like I should be proud. Jason returned with the bottle and poured the wine. David placed his order, chatting easily, while I stared ahead. And for you, ma'am? Nothing for me. Thank you, I replied. You're not eating? David frowned. I've lost my appetite. 4 hours of humiliation had taken care of that. Suit yourself, he muttered, already turning his attention to his phone. I watched him, this man I had given 16 years of my life to, and something shifted. The low murmur of the restaurant faded, the weight of the wine glass in my hand grounding me in a moment of absolute clarity. I wasn't angry, I was awake. I need to use the restroom, I said, rising. He barely glanced up, already absorbed in email again. Inside the single-stall bathroom, I leaned against the door and took my first deep breath in hours. The woman staring back at me in the mirror was poised, polished and completely hollow. I pulled out my phone and opened the rideshare app. A car could be there in 3 minutes. Then I checked my banking app. The joint account showed David's latest charge at Griffin's Tavern, $107.82 for office drinks. My personal credit card linked to his premium account, the one he insisted I keep for emergencies, was still active. I rarely used it, until now. Hands trembling but determined, I opened the airline app. 1 first-class seat, available midnight flight to Paris. The cost made me hesitate for half a second. Then I tapped confirm. I thought of the box of professional chef's knives still packed from our last meal. The culinary dreams I'd shelved, the bistros in Paris I'd dreamed of, the flavors I longed to taste and create. Confirmation seat 3A. Departing in under 3 hours. I reapplied my lipstick, squared my shoulders, and walked back to the table where David was already halfway through his meal. You know what? I said as I slid back into my seat. I think I will have another drink. I think I will have another drink. Emotional whiplash hit as the plane touched down at Charles de Gaulle. Exhaustion battled with adrenaline, but I'd done it. I'd actually left my phone on airplane mode, since the 20th call from David, now buzzed violently in my hand. Messages flooded in, 47 missed calls, 78 texts. I scrolled through them, watching the descent from confusion to fury to panic. Where are you? Answer your phone. The credit card company just called. Fraud alert. What did you do, Emily? This isn't funny anymore. Your parents are worried sick. I had to call them. Please just let me know you're safe. I'm sorry about last night. It was just a joke. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Come home. I've called the police. The last message gave me pause. Would the police actually look for me? I was a grown woman who had chosen to travel, not missing, just gone. I typed one message to my sister. I'm sick. We'll explain later. Please don't tell David anything. Then I powered off my phone completely. Stepping outside Charles de Gaulle, into the crisp Parisian morning, I felt both terrified and strangely free. All I had was a hastily packed carry-on, one change of clothes, basic toiletries, my passport and a wallet. No plan, only escape. The taxi driver spoke little English, but hotel was universal enough. Somewhere not too expensive, I added, unsure if he understood. Near good food. I tried again. He nodded once and pulled away from the curb. Through the window Paris unfolded. Not the postcard version but the real breathing city. Street sweepers moved deliberately across sidewalks. Bakers emerged with trays stacked high. Early commuters clutched coffee as they disappeared into metro stations. We arrived at a narrow street in what I would later learn was the 11th arrondissement. The Hotel Lumière was small, its blue awning faded, but charming. Not a tourist trap, but the kind of place locals might recommend to friends from out of town. Bonjour, I attempted at the front desk, my accent painfully American. Good morning, the concierge replied smoothly in English, his smile warm. Welcome to Hotel Lumière. Do you have a reservation? I shook my head. I'm sorry, no. It was a spontaneous trip. Something in my expression must have spoken louder than my words. He nodded gently. We have one single room left. 3 nights minimum. Will that work for you, Mrs.? I caught myself. Emily Parker. The name felt foreign, like I'd pulled it from a dusty drawer after years of disuse. According to his nameplate, the concierge was Ethan Brooks, American, from Boston. He told me he'd moved to Paris 12 years ago for love and stayed for the food. After the relationship ended, he stayed anyway. As he ran my card, he marked a map with suggestions for nearby cafes and walking paths. For your first proper French coffee, he said, circling a street corner, go to Café Marais. Tell Marie that Ethan sent you. The room was tiny, but immaculate. A single bed, a small writing desk, and a window overlooking a courtyard where herbs grew in tidy rows. I showered off the flight, changed into fresh clothes, and headed out before I could second-guess myself. Café Marais was already buzzing with morning energy. I ordered un café au lait, and a petit déjeuner, then claimed a seat by the window to watch the city go about its Wednesday. The coffee arrived, rich, dark, perfect, accompanied by a small pastry I hadn't ordered. Compliments of the house, said the server in accented English. For new faces. I took one bite. Buttery layers gave way to a warm almond center, and something deep inside me cracked. This was why I had once wanted to cook. To create moments like this, simple, quiet and unforgettable. Emily Parker. I turned to find a woman staring at me in disbelief. Blonde bob, sharp cheekbones, chef's pants under a leather jacket. Sophie Bennett. Gone were the wild curls and stained apron from culinary school. I barely recognized her. It's Sophie Durant now, she said, laughing as she embraced me with European-style kisses. What on earth are you doing in Paris? Last I heard you were married to some hotshot lawyer in Chicago. It's complicated, I said with a small smile. And you? I asked. Sous chef at Maison Vert, just down the street. I blinked. I knew that name. I'd read about the restaurant in Savor and Style magazine. Been here 6 years now, Sophie said, then narrowed her eyes. But you, I thought you gave up cooking when you got married. I did, I said quietly. She slid into the chair across from me, frowning. That's such a waste. You were the most talented in our class. I felt a pang. I never really got the chance. I never understood why you turned down that position at the Gilded Spoon in Chicago, she said. That was your dream job. My heart stuttered. I never got an offer from the Gilded Spoon. Sophie's face changed instantly, from surprise to concern. Yes, Chef Martin told me himself. He was stunned when you declined. I gripped my coffee cup tightly. I never declined, because I never knew. Emily, she said slowly, Chef Martin called you. About the job. He called several of us for references. I told him you were the best choice. She paused. He said your husband called him back. Said you decided to focus on family. The word sliced through me. Family. We had tried, early in the marriage, faced disappointment after disappointment, until David declared flatly that it wasn't meant to be, and buried himself even deeper in work. That's impossible, I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew it was exactly what David would do. There were other inquiries about you too, Sophie continued gently. Over the year, your name would come up. Then, nothing. Silence. Like the interest just vanished. A cold realization settled in my bones. How many opportunities had been intercepted? How many paths quietly blocked without my knowing? I need to use your phone, I said suddenly. Sophie handed it over without hesitation. I typed in a name I hadn't searched in years. Chef André Leclerc, my mentor from culinary school, the man who once told me I had hands that understood food. His website loaded quickly. A banner across the top announced an upcoming workshop. Classic French Techniques. Paris, April 15, 20. My heart skipped. That was tomorrow. Sophie, do you know if Chef Leclerc's workshop still has openings? She grinned. He's an old friend. I'm assisting with the session. I can get you in. Fall. Batting with Sep. 24 hours later I stood in a sun-drenched kitchen at Académie Leclerc, shallow beneath my knife, muscle memory kicking in like an old song I hadn't heard in years. Chef Leclerc moved gracefully among 12 students, offering encouragement and corrections with the same quiet confidence I remembered. When Sophie introduced me, he embraced me warmly, no judgment in his eyes when I explained my years away from the profession. The hands remember what the mind forgets, he said, watching me dice with ease. Your technique is still beautiful, Emily. You, Guimons, remember what the mind forgets, he said, watching me dice with ease. Your technique is still beautiful, Emily. They asked questions about American culinary trends, genuinely curious about my perspective despite the gap in my career. You have a distinctive way of describing flavor, Olivia said after I explained the evolution of a dish we'd made that morning. Very precise, very evocative. Do you write about food? I shook my head. Not professionally. You should. She handed me her card. Send me something. Fall, you should. She handed me her card. Send me something. Fall. That evening, I finally called Rachel from the hotel landline. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was tight. Emily, is that you? It's me, I'm in Paris. A long pause. Paris? What happened? David's been calling everyone. He says you're having some kind of breakdown. Did you believe him? Another pause. No, but I didn't know what to believe. You just vanished. I told her everything. The anniversary dinner, the public humiliation, Sophie's revelation about the gilded spoon offer that never reached me. She gasped when I said Chicago. You know what's crazy, she said. We all saw it. The way he isolated you, criticized you, controlled everything. Even Mom noticed you stopped talking about cooking after you married him. Why didn't anyone say anything? We tried, Em. Remember when I visited last year and suggested you take that community cooking class? David spent the entire dinner explaining why it was a waste of time. After that, Mom and I actually discussed an intervention, but we were scared you'd choose him over us. He had you so convinced his way was the only way. I closed my eyes, remembering how defensive I'd always been, how quick I was to protect David's decisions from any scrutiny. What are you going to do now? Rachel asked gently. I don't know, I whispered, but I'm not coming back. Not yet. Good, she said firmly. Stay away, until you remember who you are. Fall, you are. Fall, you remember who you are. Fall. The next morning, Sophie offered me a temporary position prepping at Bistro Lucien, one of the places she helped manage. Nothing fancy, she warned. Mostly vegetables. Basic sauce, but for me it wasn't just a start, it was resurrection. With every brunoise, every velouté, every quiet nod of approval from the kitchen staff, I felt parts of myself returning, the heat, the rhythm, the elegant chaos I had missed it more than I ever let myself admit. At night, I started writing in a small notebook Ethan had given me, stories, not just recipes, stories about flavor, memory, freedom, Paris. Then I built something new. An anonymous blog, The Runaway Chef. I documented everything, how a pain au chocolat made me cry, how slicing onions felt like therapy, how I was slowly reclaiming the woman I'd been before David rewrote my future. Fall, you want a woman I'd been before David rewrote my future. Fall, you 1 week in, Ethan knocked on my door. He looked uneasy. There's a man downstairs, he said. American, says he's your husband. My blood ran cold. Did you tell him I was here? No, Ethan assured me. Hotel policy. I didn't confirm anything, but he left his number, asked me to pass along a message. He handed me a small card. Your parents are very worried. There are financial matters that need immediate attention. David had found me. That night, Rachel called the hotel. David showed up at Mom and Dad's yesterday, she said, her voice tense. Told them you were having a psychotic break. Said you emptied accounts and maxed out his credit cards. Did they believe him? Dad almost did until I showed them your texts. Are they okay? They're worried, she admitted, but they're on your side. Dad said, and I quote, if she needed to go to Paris to get away from him, then she needed to go to Paris. I think he's finally seeing David for who he is. Over the next 2 weeks, I fell into a rhythm. Mornings at Bistro Lucien, prepping, chopping, whisking. Afternoons wandering through Paris, or returning to Chef Leclerc's workshops. Evenings spent scribbling in my notebook, or posting to the runaway chef. Each day, I felt a little stronger, a little more like myself. David's attempts to contact me grew increasingly desperate. He called Bistro Lucien twice. He messaged mutual friends. He even reached out to Chef Leclerc, pretending to support his wife's culinary passions. Each attempt hit a wall. I had blocked every avenue of access. I updated the blog daily, describing the perfect croissant from a hidden patisserie, the joy of rediscovering knife skills, the way the morning light danced on the Seine. 3 weeks after I arrived, Olivia Harris appeared during my shift at the bistro. She slid onto a bar stool and waved Sophie over. I've been reading your blog, she said, smiling. Sophie told me it was yours. My cheeks warmed. It's just something I've been doing for myself. It's excellent. Your piece about the sensory memory of your grandmother's kitchen made me call my own mother. She reached into her bag and placed a card on the counter. Savor in Style is expanding its digital content in Europe. We need someone who understands both American and French food culture. Someone who can write with insight and precision. I stared at the card. You're offering me a job, a 3-month contract to start. If it works out, we'll talk long term. Our editor tried your apple tart with rosemary cream last week. Said it was the most interesting dessert he's had all year. The head chef had let me put it on the menu as a weekend special. I hadn't realized anyone important had ordered. This isn't charity, Olivia added, reading the hesitation on my face. This is recognition. Your husband may have derailed your career once. He doesn't get to do it again, unless you let him. I picked up the card, felt its weight. When would you need an answer? Take the weekend. Call me Monday. She stood to leave, then turned back. Whatever you decide, Emily, don't stop writing. Your voice matters. I spent the weekend walking along the Seine, running my fingers over the draft of my acceptance letter, rewriting it twice. On my way to the bistro, I rounded the corner and stopped cold. David was leaning against the entrance. He straightened the moment he saw me, adjusting his tie, an old performance tic, a symbol of control. He looked thinner, paler, with dark shadows beneath his eyes. But the moment he opened his mouth, the mask slid on the concerned husband. Emily, he said, voice deliberately gentle. Thank God, I've been so worried. A few of the kitchen staff glanced over as they arrived for their shift. David stepped forward, arms outstretched. I took a step back. How did you find me? His voice dropped. Does it matter? I'm here, we can sort this out. He reached for my arm. I pulled away. Chef Hugo appeared in the doorway. Everything okay, Emily? His accent was thick but protective. It's fine, I said softly. My husband was just leaving. David's tone shifted immediately. Actually, chef, this is a family emergency. My wife and I need to talk privately. Hugo looked at me. I shook my head. He nodded. Take the day, Emily. But the choice to return is yours. As soon as Hugo disappeared, David's entire demeanor hardened. This little vacation has gone on long enough, he hit. I've covered for you, told people you needed space after a health scare, but now the credit card company's investigating fraud. The firm's asking questions. Your parents think I drove you off a cliff. His voice rose. I said nothing. And now I find you, he continued, motioning toward the bistro, playing chef in some second-rate Parisian kitchen. This is beneath you. No, I said, voice quiet but steady. What's beneath me is waiting alone at a restaurant table while you made bets about me. What's beneath me is you sabotaging my career behind my back. His mouth opened, shut. What are you talking about? I opened my bag and handed him a folder. Printed emails. Proof. From Chef Martin at the Gilded Spoon. From a catering company in Denver. From a culinary school in Minneapolis. Each showed the same pattern. Inquiries about me, followed by sudden declines sent by someone else. You had no right, I said, holding his gaze. Those were my opportunities. My choices. I was protecting you from disappointment, he snapped. But his confidence. You weren't ready. I knew what was best. No, you knew what was best for you. I shot back. A wife who was always available to plan dinner parties. Smile at firm events. Stay silent. I gave you a beautiful home, financial security. I looked him square in the eye. A cage isn't beautiful just because it's expensive. A young couple passed, eyeing us awkwardly as the tension thickened. David's voice lowered. This rebellion of yours ends now. Rebecca saw your blog. Thomas knows you're in Paris. How do you think this looks for me, while I'm being considered for partner? I blinked. I hadn't realized my blog had reached them. A small satisfied smile tugged at my mouth. That wasn't intentional, but I'm not sorry. They should know who you really are. His face flushed. So this is revenge. Sabotage. Because I was late for dinner? This isn't about revenge, David. It's about reclaiming my life. I took a breath. I've accepted a position with Savor in Style. A food magazine. I'm taking it. A blog isn't a career, he scoffed. What about our life? Our home? I've spoken with a lawyer. The divorce papers will arrive next week. I hadn't. Not yet. But the look of pure shock on his face made the bluff worth it. You can't be serious. Panic cracked into David's voice now, leaking through the last of his composure. We can work through this couple's therapy. A fresh start. Somewhere new. Like Chicago. I tilted my head slightly. Chicago, I repeated, where I was offered my dream job. That was years ago, he muttered. I did what I thought was right at the time. For yourself, I said. I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the weight of his justifications. The endless reruns of excuses I'd lived through for 16 years. I'm not coming back, David. Not to Chicago. Not to our home. Not to this marriage. I found something here, something I didn't even realize I'd lost. And what about me? He asked, his voice hardening. Everything I've lost because of your selfish actions. There it was. His real Do you know Thomas questioned my judgment at the Langston case yesterday? Said if I couldn't manage my personal life, maybe I wasn't ready for bigger responsibilities. So that was it. He hadn't come for me. He came because I had become a liability to his career. That, I said coolly, sounds like a you problem. I let the phrase hang in the air, one he used often when I had brought him my pain, my needs, my dreams. For a moment I thought he might shout, grab my wrist, beg. But instead, his shoulders slumped, slightly, enough to signal defeat. You've changed, he said, almost accusingly. Yes, I said. I have. I watched him walk away, his confident stride faltering just slightly at the edge of the curb. David, ever conscious of appearances, quietly agreed to nearly every term rather than risk a public unraveling of his image. The lawyer Olivia recommended, a sharp American expat, who specialized in international divorces, was a godsend. Calm, fierce, official. I signed the papers from my new apartment in Paris. Fierce. I accepted the position at Savor in Style. What started as a 3-month contract soon blossomed into something permanent. My blog continued to grow, with new readers each day, chefs, food critics, home cooks and people searching for something they couldn't name. The Emily who had been silenced for 16 years was speaking again. Her voice was stronger, richer, more certain than ever before. Fierce. 6 months later I hosted my first dinner party in my new apartment. A charming 1-bedroom on a quiet street in the 6th arrondissement, with a kitchen that may have been small but caught the morning sun like stained glass. Around my table sat the people who had become the new foundation of my life. Sophie, and her partner, Chef André Leclerc, Olivia and her husband, Ethan from Hotel Lumiere, now a dear friend, and 2 colleagues from Savor in Style, who had championed my writing from day one. I served a menu that told the story of my journey, appetizers rooted in my culinary school days, a main course that honored traditional French techniques with American boldness, and for dessert, the apple tart with rosemary cream, the dish that changed my path. As we lingered over wine and conversation, my phone buzzed. David's name lit up the screen, for the first time in months. Whatever crisis or reconciliation he was attempting would have to wait. Without opening the message, I deleted. Then I set the phone face down and returned my attention to the laughter, the soft clinking of glasses, the warm smell of thyme and butter still floating in the air. In that moment, watching my new friends savor food I'd made with my own hands, I felt something settle inside me, not a question, not a longing, but a quiet, resolute truth. This is what I was worth. Not 16 years of waiting, but a lifetime of becoming. If you've ever felt invisible in your own relationship or put your dreams on hold for someone else, Emily's story will hit home. From betrayal on her anniversary, to rediscovering her voice in Paris, this is more than a story of heartbreak. It's one of rebirth. If you believe in second chances, and finding the strength to start over, don't forget to like this video, and subscribe for more powerful journeys just like this. Have you ever walked away from something, or someone to finally choose yourself? Share your story in the comments below.